Since the time you were young, you were shown these photos, and you were told that these are the most beautiful faces in the world, the most beautiful people that you'll ever see. And you can only hope to be this beautiful someday, to have earned these lines and these scars and these wrinkles and this twinkle in your eye that only comes after a well-lived life. And not everyone will be able to attain this kind of beauty because you can't buy it. You have to earn it through living an adventurous, autonomous, authentic life. What if you had been shown these photos every day since you were young? How would you feel about beauty or aging or yourself? And I often wonder how many industries would go out of business if we all woke up one morning and said, I think I'm going to go on that journey to aging wherever it takes me to hope to attain that elderly beauty. Because although beauty is in the eye of the beholder, beauty itself is a social construct that is defined and sold to us daily through the images we see through advertisers, social media, influencers trying to sell us products that promise eternal youth, that eventually fail because we're all going to age. And ultimately we end up feeling insecure or anxious or depressed because we can't live up to some certain cultural standard. Now let's also imagine, if you had been told from the time you were young, that for most of your life, you're just going to feel okay. Not great, not awful, but just okay. Going through the motions, enjoying your daily experiences. But also through the course of your life, you're going to have periods of time where you feel ecstatic, overjoyed, in awe of the miracle of life. And when you hit those spots, make sure you soak them in. Enjoy every second, because those feelings will also fade, and you'll find your way back to okay. And then there'll also be times in your life where you feel such grief and pain and despair that you'll be brought to your knees. But given enough time and love and support, those feelings will also pass, and you'll find your way back to okay. What if you had been assured of this story daily from the time you were young, that all of these feelings were normal and okay? How would you feel about your mental health? Because this story is also a social construct, like the beauty story, but unlike the beauty story, this one is actually a positive construct that supports your mental health and well-being. Unlike the current construct about mental health that serves as an avenue to anxiety, depression, insecurity. I'm just curious, how many of you have been told that it really doesn't matter what you do, just make sure you're happy? Anyone? Doesn't matter what you do, just make sure that you're happy. It's a fabulous sentiment, isn't it? No expectations, no judgment, no pressure. Just focus on being happy. The problem with that sentiment is that happiness is an emotion. It's not a life goal, it's not a destination. And so when you go through those periods of time where you're not feeling happy, what are you? Have you failed? Are you a disappointment? This expectation of trying to arrive in an emotional state and stay there drives anxiety, depression, insecurity. I've been part of the helping professions for almost 30 years. And over that time, I've seen this steady increase in our collective suffering. Much of it should not be a surprise, especially in the last few years, with all the existential and actually concrete things that are happening to drive us into an uncertain future. People that never worried about their mental health before are coming forth and saying, I'm struggling. And if you're feeling anxious or nervous, fearful, hopeless, a little depressed, that would be a normal reaction to all of the information that's coming at you daily. And then on top of that, we have the expected daily stressors of life, work, relationships, school, our health, trying to keep up with a social system that drives us 24/7, and then also making sure that we fit into the social constructs, the stories that we're taught that will take us to success. And you put that all together, and it would not be a surprise that we would struggle. But struggling doesn't equate to mental illness. It's a struggle. And so through my lens as a psychotherapist and clinician, I thought about how do we make this better? And I have a couple ideas of how we can actually reduce a good amount of our collective suffering. Now, I'm not implying that I have a cure for mental illness, because I don't. True mental illness is too broad of a topic and too deep to be able to solve with a few ideas. But I do believe that by challenging these social narratives, these stories, these constructs, we would fairly quickly improve the lives of millions of people, reducing anxiety, reducing depression, reducing insecurity, and improving our quality of life. But getting there is going to be a challenge because these cultural stories, these narratives, are so pervasive, so widely accepted that we consider them to be universal truth, like it's always been this way. These stories are taught to us by our well-meaning parents. They are the basis of our education system. They're generated by our mental health system, and they are supported and developed by our highly competitive, consumer-based economic system. So to challenge this narrative, to flip this narrative and look at it from another direction is going to be tough to do because most of us don't even recognize that it's just a story that we're following. And most of us wouldn't stop to question whether or not this story might be problematic. So let's revisit this happiness idea. Yes, happiness is an emotion. It ebbs and flows. It's not a life goal. It'd be really difficult to maintain that. It impacts our mental health. But the other dirty little secret about happiness is that this happiness that you're being wished for is not the happiness that you think it is. It's not the happiness that comes from just joyously experiencing the sunset and being happy in our bodies and enjoying our lives. That's not that happiness. No, the happiness you're being wished comes if you get on that track in this very narrow path that's going to lead you on the road to the American dream and success, and that's where happiness lives. The happiness that you're being wished. The challenge with this happiness and this narrow path is that it requires you to really be excellent and to be competitive and to achieve and excel. From the time you are young, you need to be perfect at everything you do. You need to get excellent grades, get into a fabulous university, where you'll continue to get perfect grades to get into a fabulous grad school, where you'll continue to get perfect grades to get into an internship that will land you the big job, that will then afford you the salary so that you can pay off your student loans, but also to acquire those material goods and that prestige that will get you to the place of success, and then, you have happiness. And if you get to that place and you do not feel the happiness, well, the cultural narrative goes like this. Oh, you blew it. That's on you. We wouldn't question that the narrative itself was problematic. You are the reason you're not happy in this place of success. And if you weren't even able to get on a competitive train, if it really wasn't your style, you didn't do well in that department, well, that also is your problem and your fault, because it's never been the story. And it's not that pursuing a career and pursuing the path is inherently bad. It's not at all. As a matter of fact, having a job, having a sense of purpose is essential. It builds our self-esteem. It makes us feel a part of something greater than ourselves. Meaningful work is a tenet of our mental health, good mental health. So it's an important factor, but it's only one. And we have such a laser focus on achievement and learning the tools to take us to these big careers or jobs or vocations, whatever it is, that we completely forget or dismiss the importance of the other tenet of good mental health, which is deeply connected, intimate relationships. We don't value them in this cultural story. As a matter of fact, we're mostly dissuaded. Well, you don't want to get involved in relationships. They're dicey. You can't trust people. Don't depend on others. Just put all your efforts into your career. Well, we don't teach any skills then of how to enjoy a good relationship, how to communicate, how to problem solve, how to work with conflict. We don't teach those skills because our cultural narrative story doesn't value it. And so it's overlooked in our education system and through most parts of our lives. And that's a bummer, because some of the greatest parts of our lives come from our people, right? Not these people on our screen, but the people that show up for you when you are trying to improve your life or have these excellent experiences. And I can guarantee you that this moment right now wouldn't mean much if my people weren't here tonight with me. But we don't value that. Imagine how hollow our achievements feel if there's no one there to cheer for your successes and pick you up when you fall. They're essential. And without them, we suffer. Ooh, that's another of the cultural narratives. Let's talk about suffering. Because suffering is an inherent part of the human experience. If you're trying it all, if you're in the game, then you're going to have disappointments. You're going to be let down. You're going to get hurt. You're going to feel uncomfortable. It's part of being a human. But another part of our cultural story is if you make enough money and have enough prestige and things surrounding you, you'll never be uncomfortable. You'll never suffer. That's a lie. It will still get you, no matter how much money you have. But when you don't have the skills to deal with suffering when it comes your way, that suffering is even more profound. It takes us to our knees even harder when we're unprepared for those inevitable disappointments in life. All of our efforts to try to avoid suffering quite often cause us a lot of suffering. And so another part of my idea is, hey, why don't we warn people that there are specific things that we're all going to experience in our life and they're going to hurt a lot, or they're going to be overwhelming, or they're going to make us feel uncomfortable. Let's tell people ahead of time that that's part of the plan so that they're not so blindsided when they get there. Let's teach the skills that people need to calm themselves, to have conversations, to deal with loss. Let's teach them the things that we actually do in therapy so that they have those skills. Well, let's talk about death, for example. Why don't we normalize death as a part of life? It is, it's inevitable. Why is it so hidden in secret? Why don't we keep it in the middle of our life? Let children be part of the death rituals, burying their pets, being there when we bury loved ones, and to talk about it and show and model healing. It wouldn't be so damn scary, would it, if it was with us from the time we were young? And then we'll teach those grieving skills, because there's a lot of things that we can do to move through that process, understanding our anger and our sadness and our confusion as we move through grief, but also to know that with enough support and care and time, because it takes time, we will get to the other side and find our way back to okay. And if we go along this path, we get to okay, we've also developed resilience. And we've realized that we have the capacity to heal even in the most dismal of situations. So we teach people these skills and we proactively let them know they're going to struggle at their times in their life. Like, let's talk about sex and sexuality. Those are areas we struggle. Why don't we teach pleasure and intimacy? It'll make those deeply connected relationships way more fun, right? And we should talk about adolescence, because there's no surprise that adolescents struggle. That's part of the journey from childhood to adulthood, so let's normalize that a bit. And also, as we're teaching these skills, to let people know if you have a hard time finding your way back to okay, then we have mental health care for you to pursue. But we want to give you the skills to find the right mental health care, because good therapy can be life-changing and life-saving, but bad therapy can take us to hell. So I want to make sure that everyone understands how do we access that good therapy so we can find our way back to okay. And also to understand that with all the therapy in the world, none of us are really going to be able to stay in a place of full healing for long periods of time unless we address that last piece, which is the systemic elephant in our room. The elephant in the room that causes great despair across the board. And that's lack of access to resources that makes our human existence more comfortable, possible, less anxiety-provoking. Imagine what it would be like if every person was guaranteed a livable wage, or access to good food, healthy food, clean air, clean water, a safe place to sleep, a safe place to play with their kids, nice neighborhoods. Those are fundamental to our mental health and well-being. And to have those available would lift millions of people out of their distress and back to a place of functioning. But in order to get there, it would require a populist movement that I don't know if we have in us today. People taking the streets and demanding we need to have things in place that helps human beings live. Or it would take someone with great wealth or in power to say, you know, it would be a great idea. Let's make sure everyone does okay so that we all can do okay. And so, although that's much of a part of a pipe dream, we'll focus a bit on maintaining the wellness of as many individuals as we can. So here's your homework. Think about these cultural narratives and the path that you're on. And if it's right for you, if you like the competition, you're grooving on your career choice, you're excited about all the things coming at you, then hell yes, keep going. That cultural story works for you. And that's why they exist, because they do work for a lot of our population. But if they're not working, if this path isn't in your way or on your way, then really think about creating a life that supports first your mental health and well-being, and the mental health and well-being of those you love and are responsible for. And that's a fine nuance, because taking care of who we're responsible for changes a little bit of how we choose our path. And when we choose our path that aligns with our temperament and our skills and our talents and our actions, all of those doors start to open a little more easily, and we feel better along the way. And my wish for you is resilience and curiosity and the joy in pursuing a long life, gaining your own wrinkles and scars and lines and a twinkle in your own eye as a reward for your life where you pushed through discomfort, you met your fears, and you lived an authentic, adventurous, heart-centered life.